In the 2021 playoffs, Trae Young had a legendary run. In the conference finals, he was crossing up Jrue Holiday, shimmying on the Bucks defense, and causing Giannis to crash out on the bench. Then in the previous series, he completely outplayed Ben Simmons, who at the time was looked at as the next face of the NBA.
Hey LeBron, Ben Simmons is here. We're all good.
And after that series, Ben was never the same player mentally. And in the same playoff run, Trae also had his iconic first round series against the New York Knicks, where he just straight up tortured and rage baited an entire fan base. So, how did Trae Young in 4 years go from being one of the best playoff performers in the NBA to now getting into YouTube battles with a clip farmer like Patrick Beverley? Well, the biggest and most obvious thing is that the Atlanta Hawks have pretty much been a non-factor over the past 4 years, getting bounced out in the first round twice, to then outright miss the postseason in the following 2 years. In this video, I want to answer 2 questions. First, why did Trae have so much success in the 2021 playoffs? And what exactly changed since then? Now, throughout Trae's entire career, he's always done a vast majority of his work out of pick and roll. And that was especially the case in his first postseason run, where in just 16 games, Trae played in pick and roll exactly 478 times. And just for reference, this was Luka's pick and roll volume during his finals run last year. And this was prime James Harden in 2018. Now, out of pick and roll, everything stems from Trae's outside shooting. Even at this time, Trae wasn't super accurate from behind the line. But the thing was, he both took these looks in such high volume while having the ability to get hot. And besides Steph Curry, there was nobody else across the league who had the guts to take these kind of looks.
Picking him up defensively
Mechanically, Trae doesn't get a ton of elevation into his shot. He releases the ball just above his shoulders while having this grounded set shot. But at the same time, Trae does have really good timing with his lower body by getting full extension from his knees and hips as he releases the ball. That shot timing along with that lower set point is what unlocks Trae's crazy range. If he has space and his feet are set, he has no problem uncorking these 35-foot bombs. And while Trae doesn't get a ton of lift into his shot, he does have a really quick trigger off the dribble. Whether he's pulling up going both right or left, he's great at quickly finding his space to rise up. So that blend of Trae's range and being able to get a shot off quickly gave him the foundation to punish any soft pick and roll coverage. If the man guarding the ball went under or got hung up on the screen, Trae was rising up with no hesitation. And again, while his numbers from a bird's eye view weren't that great, he still had multiple games where he shot 45 to 50% from 3. So if these shots are falling, the defense can't really stomach giving him all this airspace. So what ends up happening is that outside threat forces the defense to step up and play Trae more aggressively. And this literally unlocks his entire game. First, when the man guarding the ball fights over, that automatically gives Trae a 2-on-1 advantage against the drop big. And because Philly and Milwaukee had lumbering bigs like Lopez and Embiid, Young had plenty of room to turn the corner and punish that 2-on-1 advantage. And when it comes to finding the roller, he's easily one of the best passers across the league. He can hit pocket passes or play off 2 feet and find these tight deliveries. But what Young does really well is set up these lobs above the rim. Because he has such a good in-between floater game, he's great at leveraging that to pull the big up, creating room behind the defense for these dimes. And Trae was really good at weaponizing his pace and eyes. We'll see him here turn the corner off the screen to then slow down and chop his feet as he gets below the arc. And look how he's going to lift his eyes, which pulls Bobby Portis up, opening up the rim for this wide open lob. Trae's change of speed here is elite, where he's first going to come off to then slow down and turn his head, selling the pocket pass. But then when he feels that space, he's going to take one more aggressive dribble downhill, which gets Randall stuck in the mud and sets up another easy dime. But then like we've gone over, if the defense overplays that lob, Trae can also play off 2 feet and knife different passes in the paint. He's going to snake the screen across to his right, to then set up the simple shot fake and dump off pass. Now that lethal 2-man game often forced the defense to send extra help from the weak side, but Trae was also really good at mapping the entire floor. And for a 6'1 guard to make these type of cross-court passing reads is pretty freaking crazy. And this is where we have to talk about Trae's ability to make these one-hand dimes. Whether he's attacking right or left, he has no problem picking up off a live dribble and lasering the ball across the court. Look how he's going to take one dribble across the screen to then read the weak side digging down, and just like that, he's snapping this cross-court dunk.
Great cross-court pass off the dribble.
That ability to instantly pass off a live dribble pretty much gives the defense no room for error. If they overcommit to any spot on the floor, Young has a hairpin trigger to capitalize. This dime here is nuts, where Trae's playing this two-man game at the top of the key, but he reads Embiid in the paint shifting up. So watch Trae transfer the ball through to then laser this pass all the way down to Clint Capella on the baseline. And then if the defense tried to play more aggressive by blitzing, hard hedging, or stepping up to the level, Trae also had the passing arsenal to butcher these coverages. And it pretty much always put the backline defense at a disadvantage.
As you noted, I've been on the bench for a while, but another...
So because Trae could both shoot the ball from range and pass to pretty much every spot on the floor, this made it easy for him to force breakdowns without having to penetrate below the arc. There were many times where the defense would send 3 or 4 bodies towards the ball, and Trae's passing combined with the Hawks' movement and shooting led to a ton of easy looks. Portis on this play prematurely shifts up, allowing Trae to hook this pass to Collins rolling, and just like that, it's another dunk at the rim. Look how Holiday here on the weak side is already rotating across before the screen gets set. So Trae is going to cop the ball back and whip it across. Now the next thing we have to talk about is Young's floater game. While his percentages from 3 and around the basket aren't great, he did put up really good numbers from 8 to 12 feet. In this postseason, Trae shot just under 54% on 6.5 attempts per game, and that year he led the NBA in both volume and efficiency. When looking at specifically how Trae gets into these looks, everything comes back to that passing. Again, as a playmaker, there wasn't a read that Trae couldn't make. So when he's coming off these picks, the defense was really hesitant to commit to the ball, which in return gave Trae plenty of space to work with. Look how there's literally nobody on the Bucks who wants to commit to the ball, and Trae has all this space for a wide open push shot at the elbow. And Young also has this push and pull effect with the big defending and drop. If he commits over towards the ball, that again opens up this lob pass. But if they sit back to defend the roller, Trae then has all this airspace to rise up. And from these spots, Trae just has really good pace and feel. Look how he's going to use his eyes to move Lopez off his spot, setting up this smooth teardrop. So if Trae's coming downhill out of pick and roll, it's going to be a nightmare for the defense. He's got all those lob passes, cross-court reads, plus he has elite touch on those short runners. But what I actually think ties everything together is Trae's handle. When people talk about the best dribblers in the NBA, I think Young should be brought up more. He's obviously not on the level of a Kyrie Irving, but Young can utilize his handle very effectively, and that's especially the case out of pick and roll. One thing Young loves to use is his pocket dribble, where he brings the ball up to his outside hip and briefly hesitates. And this does a couple of things. First, it allows him to read the defense, and that quick pause gives him an extra split second to process the game, to then go about making his read.
Both Simmons and Harris on the bench. Nice try!
And second, this pocket dribble allows him to set up countless of different moves. He can pocket and pick up into a jumper, explode towards the basket, or chain it into different moves. One of his go-tos was his pocket and crossover, where he again brings the ball up to the outside hip to then whip it back across. We'll see him here bring the ball up to then sell the drive by planting that outside foot and dropping those shoulders. And he gets Simmons lost with this crossover. We'll see him hit the same move here by again bringing the ball up and crossing it, but now he's going to push downhill and explode into a drive. And again, what makes this so effective is that Young can string it into any move. We'll see him again hit that pocket cross to then bring the ball back up and transfer it through. Now, some people may think that these moves are carries, but I think for the most part, Trae does a pretty good job of keeping his hand on the side of the ball. And these are moves that literally every off-the-dribble creator uses. So offensively, it does appear that Trae checks all the boxes. He's got the ability to create, take, and make threes from range. He's an elite all-around passer out of pick and roll, plus he has the handle to break down and counter the defense at the point of attack. One would think that with the skill set, the Hawks could just put Trae in pick and roll and have sustainable offense in any playoff series. But, like we all know, that hasn't been the case over the past few years. So what exactly has changed? Now, before we dive into Trae's playoff film after this year, I want to briefly go over what exact coverages Trae saw during this conference finals run. And everything could be boiled down to just 3 things: drop, hard hedges, or blitzes. All three teams that Trae went up against both lacked elite wing defensive depth, while also having lumbering bigs on their roster. So their entire defensive game plan was to avoid switches and keep the ball as stagnant as possible. But that just fed into Young's strengths. And like we've seen over 100 times, once Trae turns the corner, the pace, passing game, and touch is just too much for any defense to deal with. But now let's jump ahead to the following year, where the Hawks were matched up with the tough and overachieving Heat team, with both Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler still in their primes. Plus, they had a ton of defensive depth at the backcourt and wing positions. But even with this most likely being a tough matchup for Trae on paper, he was coming into the series red hot, because just 2 days prior, Young had a monster 38-point game against the Cavs in the play-in tournament. So while the Heat may have been the favorites, most people thought they were going to have their hands full trying to bottle up Young. But Trae would go on to play one of his worst stretches of basketball, where in 5 games he put up some abysmal numbers, averaging over 6 turnovers per game, with low scoring volume and terrible efficiency. Plus, the Hawks would get outscored by a total of 58 points with him on the court. Now, when diving into the film, the Heat's game plan was pretty straightforward. It all came down to switching and forcing Trae to play one-on-one. And from these spots, Young wasn't able to generate efficient or reliable offense. And this does expose the holes he has as an offensive weapon. Throughout his entire career, Trae has never shot over 44% in isolation. And when trying to create on an island, there are multiple things that weigh down his production. First, like we've gone over, Trae has never been a consistent shooter. And when the defense gets more aggressive, his shots become more pushed out and off balance.
Cross. Jumper.
And second, Trae isn't an earth-shattering athlete. He does have good quickness off the bounce, but once he attacks below the arc, he doesn't get great lift in the paint, and his lack of length makes it difficult for him to cover ground and create different scoring angles in traffic. And third, his lack of size and lift on his jumper makes it really difficult for him to create looks in the mid-range. So from all 3 levels, Trae is just straight up not that consistent. He still has that floater game, but it's hard to create those looks in one-on-one situations. And off the bounce, I do think Trae has a good handle, but the way he uses it is tailor-made for pick and roll, where because the man guarding the ball doesn't want to give up the switch, it's easier for him to leverage that to get the defense off balance. But when he's going up against a set defense in open space, who's also taller, longer, stronger, and quicker, it's pretty much always going to be an uphill battle for him. And we saw the same effect in the next year against the Boston Celtics, where if they sat back in a deep drop, it was just routine floaters and lobs for Trae. But when they committed to switching and guarding him straight up, it went right back to him bombing up 40-foot threes or getting overwhelmed by size and length in the paint.
Silver down the hole. Has that one blocked.
So overall, I still think Trae is a really good NBA point guard. He's easily a top-tier passer, he's a wizard at playing off angles and pick and roll, and on any night, he could easily heat up and become a 30-plus scorer. But from a build and skill standpoint, there's multiple things that hold him back as an isolation scorer. He's not a consistent shooter, he's not very good around the basket, and he does struggle against quicker and bigger defenders. When looking at all the best heliocentric players across the league, guys like Luka Doncic or Cade Cunningham, they're all obviously masters at a pick and roll, but they can also butcher one-on-one matchups. And most teams can't afford to switch and let them play in open space, which opens up a totally different element to their game. Again, I think Trae is a great point guard, and he's a matchup problem for multiple teams. But right now, I don't think he can be the best player on a legit playoff team. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments who the kid should break down next. The kid's here.